This episode of Legacy Battle is sponsored by W Energy Drink.
W Energy is a more affordable and healthy sports drink option with over 10 plus flavors, no artificial fillers or dyes, made to prevent crashes, jitters, and angst.
Go to www.wdubby.gg and order your sports drink today. Put in the promo code Legacy Battle for a 10% discount. Thank you for watching. Welcome back to another episode of Legacy Battle. I am Michael Adams, my co-host tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King, Director of Operations for Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, Scott Crawford. We have an interview for you today about the Baseball Heritage Museum located in Cleveland, Ohio. It sits in League Park, former home of the then Cleveland Indians. Founded in 1997 by our guest, Bob Zimmer. Welcome, Bob. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. This will be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So our first question, just tell us about the beginnings of the museum and how it came together.
Well, I'll go back a little bit. So my initial interest in baseball was not huge, but I also went to work for my dad, who had a jewelry store downtown on East 4th Street, right close to what was then called Jacobs Field. And Cleveland was hosting the All-Star game in 1997. And I was trying to figure out a way to draw some potential customers into the jewelry business so I could sell them some stuff, some jewelry, because people were coming in from all over the country, actually from around the world for the All-Star game. And so it was suggested that I reach out to a fellow by the name of Wilmer Fields. Wilmer Fields was the president of the Negro League Baseball Players Association at that point in time. And at that time, Major League Baseball hadn't reached out to them to do any type of exhibit that they were going to host during the All-Star game. So Wilmer agreed to come in what was supposed to be a 1-day or 2-day fireside chat autograph session. And about a month before the actual game took place, Wilmer called me up and said he couldn't help me out because Major League Baseball had asked him to host and sit at a booth that they were setting up at the convention center. But he did tell me that he's got 2 guys that he'd like to send in. A fellow by the name of Stanley Glenn, who played with the Philadelphia Stars, which was a Negro League team, and a fellow by the name of Willie Grace. Willie Grace was also a Negro League player, and he played on the Buckeyes. And the Buckeyes actually won the 1945 Negro League Championship at League Park. Well, they didn't win the game at League Park, but their home field was League Park. And we're getting ready to celebrate the 80th anniversary of that victory. So we've got a year-long celebration about Negro League baseball. So the original focus and concept of the museum was Negro League baseball, but we decided to do an event where we brought in a number of people from different parts of the city to see what they thought about hosting and growing a Negro League Baseball Players Association Hall of Fame. So it turns out that in order to really stabilize and make sure that we were going to be successful, that we expand the focus of the museum. And so we look at Major League Baseball, we look at women in baseball, Latinos in baseball. So we look at a broad scope. We have a very strong collection now of industrial league baseball, which is pretty cool. And so we look at the multicultural aspects of the game and its impact, not just on Cleveland, but on our region and international. We get people now coming in from all over the world because they want to see League Park. So it's been a lot of fun for me. And so I think, what is that? If it's 97, it's like 26 years, 27 years almost. People told
Yeah.
me, Bob, it's a good idea, but it's not going to last. So, but we're still here. And we're at League Park, which is pretty darn cool.
Right.
Hey Bob, tell us a little bit about League Park. What's left of it, what's being used, and what part is the museum using of League Park?
So we're here at League Park. League Park actually was built back in 1891, and it was built by the fellow that owned the ball team, the Cleveland ball team, and he also owned the trolley cars. And the corner of 66 in Lexington, his trolley cars ran there. And so he decided to move his field. He owned a field not too far from here, and he bought the land here and he plopped down the ballpark, which was originally 9,000 seat wooden stadium, and he built it here, right in the middle of a growing neighborhood. So the park itself was restored in 2014, and the museum decided to move from downtown into the facility, and that's where we landed. The field itself is active. It's got a turf field. It is the original dimensions are there, and let me see here. Sorry about that. The original dimensions are there. The field is used. So if you stand at home plate, you're standing where Babe Ruth hit his 500th home run. We have his 436 home run ball that was caught by a gentleman walking home from work outside of the park. He caught it, was able to come in. Babe Ruth signed it. He ended up giving it to his son. His son has loaned it to us, so it's on loan at the museum. So it's pretty exciting stuff that we have here. Obviously the Indians won the 1920 championship here, Game 5, unassisted triple play, and a number of other historic events took place.
Oh, Bob, let me jump in here really quick. I understand that many of the baseball artifacts in the museum, came from your family's personal collection. Can you give us an example of like what a visitor might find from like the late 19th, early 20th centuries, the barnstorming era of baseball?
Well, we've got some really cool stuff that has come into play. So Tom Manning was the first voice of Cleveland baseball. This is a very cool piece. It actually was donated by somebody else, not myself, but Tom Manning was the first voice of Cleveland baseball, and he called the games with a megaphone. We happen to have a collection of his recordings. They were big vinyls, and we were able to transpose them. But we now have Tom Manning's original megaphone here on display that was donated to the museum, which is pretty darn cool. Then we also have a number of Negro League items from the 30s and 40s. We have the bag Henry Ford Smith was a pitcher for the Monarchs. We have his bag that he used to carry around. It would go wherever he could go and didn't go where they weren't allowed to go. So we look really closely at the story of segregation and integration. And a number of other items. We have one of the original stadium seats from the second generation ballpark that has a finial on the end of it with a baseball glove, bat, and ball on the end, which is pretty rare. We've got a number of articles that are pretty rare. We have some programs from the Negro Leagues or games in the Negro Leagues. It's a fun place to be. Plus, you're able to get on a field that is holy ground, really, for baseball. If you go out there, almost every time you go out there, you can get a sense of who played on that field. DiMaggio's 56 game hitting streak, that was his last game at this field, and then he went downtown to play at the Municipal Stadium, and the record stopped. There's a story that if he would have made 57, he would have had a big deal with Heinz 57 ketchup.
Wow. So you mentioned the Babe Ruth 436 home run ball. I read that that is actually autographed by Willie Mays. Is that accurate? And if so, how did that happen?
Yeah. So the fellow that caught it gave it to his son, and his son was a baseball enthusiast. So whenever there was an event coming into town with players of significance, he would take the ball with him and he would get signatures on it. So Feller's on it, Mays is on it. There's a few other people that are on it. I would have liked to have seen it stay just Babe Ruth's signature, but it's pretty unique. And it is his 436 home run ball. I'm not sure that there are too many of those out there where you can actually have provenance for that.
Right.
Bob, we're talking artifacts here. Being a museum up here in Canada, we run the National Hall of Fame in Canada here. I've been to your museums about several years ago. How many artifacts would you say you guys have? Are they, a couple part question here, how many artifacts would you say you have? Are they cataloged / organized? And when people come to your museum, what's the one thing you make sure they see when they walk into your museum?
Well, we brought on a fellow, his name, our museum director, Ricardo Rodriguez, came in because when we moved the museum from downtown to this facility, everything was boxed up and packaged and brought here very quickly. We were fortunate to have Ricardo Rodriguez come in. He was on loan actually from the Indians back then, was when they were called the Indians, and they connected him with us. And he's been working to really cataloging, digitizing artifacts. I don't know, we must have, I want to say 1,000. I don't know the exact number, but we do have quite a few artifacts that are in the process of being cataloged and digitized.
Bob, you mentioned earlier about the Negro Leagues. The Negro Leagues were recently in the news when the Major League Baseball announced that their statistics will now be included among the Major League Baseball official records. So what was your view on this change? And as far as the Negro Leagues go, what do you think is like the best artifact there at the museum regarding that league?
Well, I think it's great that it was, that they've included it. I think it's changed all the stats. Again, my focus was originally Negro League Baseball. And I mean, the history there is just incredible. We probably brought in maybe 30 guys that played in what I call the traditional Negro Leagues pre-1947. When we were located downtown Cleveland. And the coolest thing for that was that not only did I get to meet the players, I got to meet the players' families and their kids. And that's one of the more exciting things that's happening now, in that we're getting ready to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the Buckeyes, is that we're working towards putting together a Negro League family reunion. So we're reaching out to a lot of the players' kids, some of whom we've stayed in touch with. Max Manning and his family are going to hopefully be here, along with Wilmer Fields' son, Billy Fields, and a number of other Negro League players' families will be here. I guess, so the artifacts are important, but telling the stories and getting to really talk with, how they were impacted by their father, their mothers who supported their fathers while they played baseball. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I find it also interesting that you have items there from the women's baseball leagues in the museum there. Can you give us an example of something that you have on display from those leagues? And also, it's kind of a side question. The women's baseball leagues kind of became famous again when a league of their own came out in 1992. So how accurate was that at depicting the real thing, in your opinion?
I think it got the essence of it. I mean, it's we have a number of items from the women's baseball leagues. We try to stay up to date with things that are happening now. I know Justine Siegel has been a real mover and shaker for getting women's baseball back into the highlights. But we have some mitts and some photographs. We also have some of the women's equipment. So catchers breast covers, we've got a couple of those, and some gloves that were used back in the day with the women's league. We have a really cool event that we try to bring in every year, a story of Alta Weiss. Alta Weiss, I think, was one of the first professional women baseball players back in the very early 1900s. She was a pitcher, and she was pretty substantial. She actually pitched here at League Park at one point, but she played professional baseball to raise money so she could go to medical school. So she was also a doctor, which is pretty amazing.
Scott, go ahead and finish us off.
All right. So I got a couple of sort of a two-part question here for you, Bob. What are the future plans for the museum to keep it moving forward and thriving in the future? As again, in the museum world, we all know they're tough to keep going, but what are your future plans? And tell us how we can support, tell everyone how we can support the museum in the future. I mean, obviously visiting it type thing, but also, how can we support the museum?
Well, we have a website, baseballheritagemuseum.org, and you can go online and join. We're always looking for donations. As you said, 501c3s are always struggling. I think we're going to see it harder and harder over the next few years to raise money. The museum hosts most of the educational programming here at League Park. And we're going to grow that. We also have a Buckeyes travel team program. A fellow by the name of Jay Murphy is our head coach and operates that program. Jay was the coach for Cleveland State when they had a program a number of years back. And he's also, he goes over to Ireland and he's the coach for, I think it's the collegiate Irish team that he goes over there once a year. But we do have an active baseball program. We'd like to raise more money to help grow that. We really are focused on trying to get kids in the city more interested in the game of baseball, which is not an easy thing to accomplish. But we believe that we're in a location that is prime for that. There's the Cleveland Foundation relocated their headquarters on the corner of 66 and Euclid, and there is a plan to renovate the street, 66th Street, from Euclid all the way up to Superior, with a lot of different activities and events, event spaces, and making it a walkable neighborhood. So we're excited about being not just a museum about baseball, but we look at all the aspects of how League Park has benefited and impacted the Huff neighborhood and the region. And we're very excited to be part as an anchor, really, for the redevelopment of the 66th Street corridor.
So everyone,
if you are in,
if you're in the Cleveland area, make sure you stop by the Baseball Heritage Museum. It's going to be a great experience for you. And as he said, you can donate to their website online. I want to thank Bob Zimmer for joining us. Bob, thank you for coming on.
Appreciate it. I would greatly appreciate it. I love what you guys are doing, and it was a lot of fun to be able to also connect with Canada. So I think let's keep that relationship going.
I remind everybody, hit that like, subscribe, notification button. Always important. We'll see everybody next time. Have a great night.